On today's Tuesday Talk, we are answering a series of questions from a viewer to Steve about B-roll and videography.
Oh, I haven't heard these questions, by the way, honestly, so this is going to be truly off the cuff like most of our videos are.
Yes. Okay, first question. What standard B-roll shots do you record for each segment?
I don't have any standard B-roll. Basically, if we're talking about something specific, thank you, Penny. I will take B-roll of whatever we're talking about. If we're hiking, I like to get detailed shots of some of the foliage around us, like us walking over rocks and moving sand and things like that from like low level. I tend to like those kinds of shots, the ground level shots, things that you wouldn't ordinarily find like at eye level, just the standard stuff. I like to get away from that as much as I can. But honestly, I don't really have a standard set of shots. I just go by what feels right to me at the time.
Okay. Question number 2. Do you have a B-roll formula that you try to follow? Like how much B-roll per video or anything like that?
I try, especially with hiking videos, I actually like them at least 50% B-roll, because then it, well, otherwise it's just us talking, and that might be a little bit boring, especially when we're hiking. You're there to see us in nature. So I like to do about 50-50 B-roll to us talking with normal hiking videos. But if they're just regular videos, I don't really have a formula, whatever feels right. It generally turns into maybe a quarter B-roll to 75%, just us going about our day and talking into the camera and things like that.
I like it when we see, I'm just going to jump in here. I don't like it when you see our faces talking for more than 50% of the video. I feel like
they're beautiful faces.
They're beautiful faces, but you don't need to see us for more than 50% of the video. So I'm a big fan of trying to show other things, but
like our dogs.
Yeah.
I often show our dogs,
yes,
as I'm sure you've noticed.
Is it a hassle to capture the walk-by shots that we see in many videos? By walk-by, I mean those B-roll shots that show one or both of you walking by the camera.
It's not really a hassle, no. It just takes extra steps. So usually Courtney walks ahead of us. I stay where I currently am. She puts the camera down on a tripod. She walks back to me, and then we both walk. And then sometimes we'll turn the camera around right when we walk past it, so you can see us walking off into the distance, and then she just goes back and retrieves the camera. So it's not a hassle, but it just takes a little bit more time. We only do that maybe once in a hiking video. Yeah. So it might take an extra 2 minutes out of our day to do those kinds of shots, but otherwise, it's really not a big deal.
Since we both have cameras, we do get a lot of just one or the other person walking. So that's really easy. One of us will hang back or go ahead and get the other person doing a section of trail. And that doesn't really take any extra time. It's just one person goes ahead or stays behind. So we do a lot more of that because we each have a camera on us, and that makes it very easy. And then we only usually set up the walk by with both of us like once. What techniques do you use that are unique to your product or our personal brand of video?
I think the main thing is the inclusion of still photography in our videos, especially when we're out doing things. I really like to include still photographs.
And that's because that was his hobby before we started this. He has always been super into photography, and he's really good at it. And you don't see a lot of still photography in YouTube videos.
That's true, unless you're following a photographer like Thomas Heaton or somebody else. I mean, they're built around still photography, but we are really not. But I still like to include that just to give you something different in the videos. And it also lets me focus on still photography a little bit more when we're out. So it's not just all videography. It's more interesting for me to film as well as hopefully for you guys to watch.
Yeah.
By including still photography.
And that was another thing with getting 2 cameras, having his main camera where he takes video, but also a lot of photography. I still also have our vlogging camera so that I can get video of him taking photos or video while he's taking photos. And that way it has best of both, I think. Best of both worlds, having both.
I hope so.
Last one. What are 1 or 2 common mistakes you have seen in other vlogs? Let me jump in real quick and say a mistake I make, and I'm trying really hard not to, and that is moving too quickly with the camera, so that it actually, when I go and I watch the video afterwards, I'm like, whoa, like that was kind of a little too fast, like
shaky.
Spinning, not even shaking, just like going from one thing to another too quickly, not slow panning, more like just moving like you would as a person, and that's really fast on camera. And so I'm trying very hard to move a little slower and pan a little slower to make it a little bit more smooth when we have video. What are some other mistakes you have seen other people make? Or
it's tough to use the word mistakes because different people have different styles in their vlogging, so I can't really say they're doing anything wrong. But the one thing that sticks out at me is the hard cuts in some of the other. I'm not going to mention any YouTubers' names, but a lot of times they go from one segment to the other, like right when they finish a word, they are cutting at that moment and going on
totally
to something
different.
else.
Yeah.
To me, I really don't like that style of editing. That's not to say that they're doing something wrong. It's just not something that I prefer.
So what do you do?
So I always try to let the video go another second or two after I finish saying something before I move on to something else, because the cuts aren't nearly as hard, and it also gives the viewer, I think, a little bit more time to process
closure.
Yeah, between things that we're doing, especially if we're changing subjects. But even if we're not changing subjects, I still like to include another second or two as I'm going about the video. That's just my personal style.
Is it also nice to have some B-roll in between topics?
Sometimes.
Instead of going right from talking about one thing to talking about another thing, which we don't always do.
Yeah, sometimes it's just
not,
it's not conducive to do that, or it's not possible because you're just not out taking B-roll. So a lot of times that it's just, that including B-roll won't be practical. But almost all the time, including a little bit extra video before you cut to something else, I think that is generally possible, and that's something that I certainly like to do. But shaky video footage, again, we're guilty of that from time to time as well. Always like to avoid that as much as possible. And whenever I say something to you, I like to add, I don't like to ramble, but I do. I know I do. So trust me, I know that I need to take my own advice, but I'm probably rambling here actually, but I don't like to ramble. I like to add value with everything I say. A lot of times I do that, sometimes I don't. That's just something that's kind of a progress, I guess.
And part of it's the fact that we like looking at this as a conversation, which is why all the Tuesday talks are not pre-talked about. We just do them. It's like you're here with us. When we're hiking, it's like you're there with us. And so sometimes that means we get a little bit rambly. But we would be rambly in real life too, so it's more real. But hopefully we still provide value.
I think if I had to come up with something else, I would say too many staged shots, too much staged video. And for us, we really like, as I'm sure you know, we shoot from the hip. Yeah. We have a few stage shots, like I'll ask Courtney to walk over this rock and I'll get some B-roll of her doing that. So from time to time, we will do staged shots too, but 95% of the time, it is just pure, I am recording as we're doing it, yeah. And I always like to include our mistakes as well as our successes, so you know that this isn't something fake. No. You're seeing what's actually happening in our day-to-day life.
Exactly. So those are the questions we were asked about, or Steve was asked about B-roll and videography. Hopefully that answered your questions. If you have other questions about our video process, his photography, Airstream life, anything, we're pretty much open books. Leave them in the comments below and you'll see it on a future Tuesday Talk. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you gave us a thumbs up. Subscribe, because we have some fun adventures coming up here soon, and we will see you soon.
That's right.
Bye, guys.